Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be she texts me 4 to 5 times a day after only 3 dates. Well, this is actually a good problem to have. So, this particular guy, he says he's been through 3% Man several times already, actually 5 times. And so he recently started dating this girl, but I think it was like after the second date, she starts texting him, and now it's the point they've had 3 dates. They're already hooking up. She's texting him 4 or 5 times a day, sending him memes, pictures, and stuff like that. And so he's getting pulled in to messaging with her back and forth. And so what's perplexing to him is he's shocked that this is happening so early on in the courtship. And so he asked me about it. And so this is indicative of a woman who has really super high romantic interest in him, but it's also possible she might be insecure and bored and just doesn't have a lot going on in her life. And so where this can really become an issue is if you get in the habit of texting all day long, then what typically happens after you've been dating several months and you get serious, and after the honeymoon period wears off, at some point you're just going to not want to reply as much to these things. And then she's going to take it as a rejection and you don't care about her. So it's really super important that you train women properly in the beginning, because if you're available 24/7 and then all of a sudden you become unavailable, which is what typically happens later on in the relationship when guys get lazy and complacent, because a big complaint that women have about men is that they're romantic at first. They take the time, they go out on dates, they romance her. But then after a while, after 6 months or a year or so, they just don't do those things anymore at all. And like the courtship completely ends. And so when I'm talking to guys that are trying to fix their long-term relationship, it's like they're usually doing the same two things. Number one, they don't date and court her properly. And number two, the woman doesn't feel heard and understood. And if the woman doesn't feel heard and understood, the legs are going to close. And if you don't date and court your girlfriend or your wife, eventually some other guy is going to come along and do that for you. Because there's a chapter in my book that talks about courtship never ends. Women want to be in a love story, and they know that if you care, you'll continue to do the little things. And if you don't, you won't. So it's a good email to go through, especially in the beginning, because usually it's, if a girl's texting you 4 or 5 times a day, you pretty much should be seeing each other just about every day. And so part of it is the guy he's been through the book 5 times, but he doesn't know it backwards and forwards. And so he's being a little robotic in his responses, and he's trying just to ignore her and ignore the text and not text too much, because he doesn't really understand the philosophy that's in the book. And this is why I say you got to read it 10 to 15 times to the point where you know it so well, backwards and forwards. You understand pickup, you understand dating, and you understand relationship skills and how you transition back and forth. I had a phone session just recently with a guy that had read my book a couple of times when he started dating his girlfriend of a couple of years. But now he's been having trouble the last 4 or 5 months. He's only been going back and learning the relationship stuff. And his big problem, once we were in the phone call for the coaching session, was that he wasn't paying any attention to the pickup and dating skills, because to him, I'm in a relationship, so I don't need those skills anymore. And it's like, no, you always need to know those skills. And if you ignore them at your peril. And usually what happens is that once you realize, like in that guy's case, he was all focused on the relationship stuff, but he wasn't paying attention to her level of attraction and noticing that she had gotten turned off and distant. And it went from her doing most of the pursuing to then him doing most of the pursuing. And it didn't even click with him that he was doing that. So this is why I say you got to read the book 10 to 15 times. You got to get to know it so well. You don't have to think about it, because when you take into consideration how much we've been propagandized by what's in the news and in movies and TV about guys being soft and guys over pursuing and acting like stalkers. And then, of course, if you act like that, then the woman's going to love you forever. You do that in the real world, you get blown off, you get dumped, you get ghosted. So we want to keep, like this particular guy wrote the email, we want to keep things going in the right direction. Her interest is definitely going up, and so he's doing a good job there. But we want him to continue going up, not where it goes up and then it stops and starts going the other way, which a lot of guys run into trouble maintaining it because they're like, hey, I'm getting late all the time. She's texting me 4 or 5 times a day. I don't need to read this thing 10 to 15 times. And then 6 months later, he's in a panic, like, Corey, I need a phone session. Can you talk to me today? Whereas, typically I'm always at least a week or two before I can get you on this schedule. So don't wait to learn the book until it's an absolute emergency, because then it's a lot harder to learn and take corrective action when you're emotionally invested. So with that in mind, let's go through his email. He says, hi, Corey. Firstly, I appreciate you putting this book together, and I must say I went over it 5 times, and I still keep going back to it to read it and even listen to it on Audible. Well, you got to put the time in, dude. There's no shortcuts to success. A lot of guys I see getting this kind of success, get this kind of interest early on, and they think, hey, I've mastered it. I got this. This stuff is easier than I thought. I don't need to read the damn book 10 to 15 times. And when they don't, they have a hard time maintaining it. So they get some attainable success, but if you want it to be sustainable, you got to know the book backwards and forwards, because you always need these skills. He says, I'm writing to you now because I'm in a situation which I don't know how to act, as this was not covered in your book. That's not true, dude. It's just you don't know the book well enough. He says, here's the situation. I matched with this girl on a dating site who moved to Australia from Brazil about a month ago to study English for a year. She was quick to respond to my in-app message and even agreed to have a date the same night. Well, that's pretty quick. I took her to a nice cozy restaurant and then to a cozy bar where we had drinks, a good time, and laughs. We ended up kissing and getting comfortable with each other. I dropped her off at home. She immediately messaged me saying how she really enjoyed the night, etc. And I responded saying I had a good time too. And so if you get text, she's text you at the end of the night, say, hey, I had a good time, doesn't mean you ask her out on a date. But if a day or two after that she's texting you and she's got no reason to reach out, then that shows there's a high level of interest. And if a woman's reaching out to you, what does the book say? You should assume she wants to see you and make the next date. And depending on the woman, depending on her attraction level from the start, is going to determine how much time she wants to spend with you or how little. I mean, there's a process, and just some women are going to be way more into you at first than the average woman is going to be. And what this guy is experiencing, this girl's super into him because his game has been pretty tight, and he thinks it's something different out of the book. But the book is there, so you respond based upon her level of effort. So you don't make too much of an effort. You don't over pursue, you don't smother, and then she starts backing off, because that becomes a real drag, especially when you're 3 or 4 weeks into it and things are going so well, and then all of a sudden she starts taking longer to respond. She's not as available to get together on dates, those kinds of things. So you want to take slow, measured steps and go slightly slower than she is. The next day after the first date, she started messaging me saying good morning, etc. So he says, I took the opportunity to set the next date, and she agreed. And then I left it at that, as I think I should. And I didn't make any more comments or get into any small chit-chat further through text. However, she continues to message me, and I try to get away with small replies. Well, if she's messaging you multiple times throughout the day, as a man, it's like if you're in meetings and stuff, like when I was in real estate or I was in the construction industry, it's like when you're busy and it's meetings and you just don't have time to sit there on the phone all day. Now, if you're a college kid and you don't have a job and you're just going to school, that's a different story. But even then, I wouldn't recommend that you be on your phone 24/7 or be available 24/7. There are things in the book that cover when you should reply and when you should not. But if you get into this habit of texting with her all day long, then eventually that's going to get in the way of your job and your purpose. And then your work's going to suffer. And then she's going to, as you get busy with work, then she's going to complain that you don't give her enough time. And the reality is, like I talked about in the book, when a woman's in love with you, they want your attention all the fucking time. All the time. So he says, however, she continues to message me and I try to get away with small replies. This carried on the first week until the second date. We had a second date similar to a first one. Well, if she's reaching out, you don't have to wait a whole week to go out again. It's just, hey, when are you available? Make the next date. Don't be a robot and say, I will only go out with her once a week. The idea is you go out once a week to create the conditions where her interest grows, and then she starts texting you and calling you more, which is exactly what's going on here. And so therefore, if she's reaching out to you, she's pursuing you. You're not going to get dumped if the girl is pursuing you. So just make the next date. It can even be in the same week. Just look at it and realize that she wants to see you. So create the next opportunity for sex to happen. Because what happens is, like, guys that don't know the book very well, they get locked in on this once a week rule, and the girl's calling and texting them all the time, and yet they will only see the girl once a week. And then what happens as 3, 4, 5 weeks in, eventually the girl starts to back off and lose interest because the dude acts like a robot. Typically what happens is, you start out casually dating, and then week 7 or week 8, when she's head over heels in love, she's pretty much going to be at your house every night, or you're going to be at hers. That's just typically normal circumstances, as long as you live in the same city, and you're not, 3 hours away or a country away from each other. It's just the natural progression. You get to a relationship, women and they're in love with you, and you do what's in the book. They're going to want your attention all the time. And so that's what's starting to happen here. She has super high interest in this guy, and she wants more of his time and attention. And it looks like he's spending way more time texting her than setting dates, because he's trying to overlay something he saw in the video or that he vaguely remembers from the book. It's like, if she's reaching out, when are you available? I want to see you. And it could be, if you just had 2 dates, it doesn't mean you have to go out on an official date every time. If she texts you at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock, she's like, what are you doing? I'll just say, come over. Come on over. She's already been over to your house. You've already been hooking up. Just invite her over. Hang out, have fun, hook up. You can go to eat. You can go out for drinks. You can cook at your house. You can Netflix and chill. You can go for a swim in the pool. You can go bike riding, whatever. You can go drive around in your golf cart, whatever you got to do. Go for a walk in the park, walk on the beach, long walks on the beach. Hang out, have fun, hook up. It's pretty simple. Don't overcomplicate it. He says, however, she continues to message me, and I try to get away with small replies. So he says this carried on the first week until the second date, and then we had the second date similar to the first one. We had a good time, laughs. I ended up taking her to my hotel room in downtown, had sex that night, and then in the morning. Hotel room, what does that mean? This guy he's living with his parents. That gets expensive. It's like, if you got money to buy a hotel, you can get an efficiency apartment. As a man, you got to have a place to go where a seduction can happen. So maybe this guy's got some distance going on. I don't know. He says, after I dropped her off in the morning, similar thing happened, and she immediately messaged saying how much of a good time she had. Well, you could say, why you should come over tonight and hang out. Same thing. Doesn't have to be, well, I'm going to make one date and then it'll be next week. The point being is that she's, hey, I really had a good time. Let's get together. Because what you'll notice is you might see her 2 or 3 times in a week. Say the third week, you get together 3 times. And then the fourth week, you notice that maybe you only get together once, and she's not as enthusiastic. She doesn't call you as much or text you as much or FaceTime you as much or whatever. And that's okay, because women are like cats, and you shouldn't take that personally. It's just the way their interest tends to fluctuate. And as long as you're indifferent to it and you're not bothered and you're calm and it doesn't irritate you, then usually the following week it starts to pick back up again. That's just the ebb and flow. You're always going to be responding to how she's showing up and what her level of effort is. So he says, and the next day, again, she sent a good morning text. So I took the opportunity to set up the third date, which is about a week later on Saturday. Again, there's no reason to wait a whole week to see her again. Maybe he doesn't say, but maybe they're long distance or something like that. I don't know, but it's just unnecessary. Because the whole reason why you do one date per week is to create the conditions where she starts texting and calling you more. And now she's doing that. And so you can see her more because she's the one reaching out to you, not being a robot and going, oh, I got to wait a week, week and a half to see her again. So he says she agreed to it, and she even said she's looking forward to spending the whole weekend with me. I was only planning for a Saturday and never implied it would be the whole weekend. Dude, this is the natural progression of things. You'll set a date on a Friday night, and you'll get together, you'll hang out, you'll have fun, you'll hook up, she'll stay the night. Then you go to breakfast, lunch, you shower together or whatever. She might run home and get some clothes and come back. Or she might wear some of your clothes or whatever, and you can throw her panties and other things in the wash and just spend the day together. What happens as the weeks go by and the months go by, lipstick shows up, hairspray, an extra an extra blow dryer shows up. Then she's leaving clothes there. She's got extra pairs of panties and shoes and outfits, and it's just slowly happens. It's like women will assimilate you, and they will bring things over. And if you're hanging out Friday night and you're hooking up and having a good time, and she stays over Saturday, it could turn into a Sunday. That's how it naturally happens. So this is a good thing. And I can tell this guy's like, oh, I don't want to spend too much time with her. It's okay when it's her idea. This is all in the book. He said in the beginning, it was like, this is not covered. It's like, no, you just don't know the book because you're not really taking it seriously when I tell you need to learn it 10, you need to read it 10 to 15 times. You're trying to copy and paste things on here and act like a robot. And if you don't learn the book, dude, this shit's going to blow up in your face. So he says, I know so far it looks like I'm doing good. However, as she messages me now 4 or 5 times a day, I find it hard to ignore the messages. You don't ignore them. And I found myself getting pulled in a small chat, having to comment on her daily private message pictures. Again, if she's texting you during the day and you've already been out a couple times and you're already hooking up, it's say, hey, why don't you come over tonight and we'll get some dinner, we'll cook some dinner together and watch a movie or something. Simple as that. Just invite her over. It doesn't have to be a big date. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money. The important thing to recognize, like it's taught in the book, is that she's reaching out to you. And obviously she wants to see you and spend more time. There's no reason to wait a week and a half to see her again. Unless, of course, you're long distance. This guy mentioned something about a hotel. So I don't know really what his living situation is. But we're adults here, and we're having adult conversations. And if you're a man asking me these kinds of questions, you should have a place of your own. Whether you have roommates or not, you need to be a man and have a place where seduction can take place instead of just, every time you have a date, you set up a hotel, because that'll get expensive. It's a lot cheaper just to get a little efficiency place in town, furnish it nicely. It can be a studio apartment, really cool the way it's decorated, nice TV. It's like, it doesn't have to be extravagant. And people going, oh, you don't understand, coach. It's like, give me a break. It's like I was working 3 jobs when I was in college and going to school full time. So I don't want to hear it. So he says, normally I wouldn't mind doing that, but according to your book, this shouldn't happen until week 6 or 7. Again, you're acting like a robot because you don't know what backwards and forwards. That's typically under most cases, but what we're dealing with here is a woman who has super high interest in you, and you should take that as a compliment to yourself. She wants to see you more and talk to you more. Plus, she's a Brazilian. Brazilians tend to be a little aggressive. But she could also be super insecure, but I haven't seen anything about that yet. I don't see anything about him saying she's complaining or this or that, but it's like there's no reason. If she's texting you this much, if you're in week 6 or 7, again, you're going to typically just about every night be at her place or she'll be at yours. You get home from work, she's showing up with food or a bottle of wine or whatever. You're making dinner together. You're hanging out. You're doing fun things. It's just create an opportunity for sex tapping, dude. That's why she's reaching out so much, because she wants to see you more. So get together and hang out. But when she gets a little cold and distant and she's not as available as much, don't get butthurt. Don't take it personally. Just remember, women are like cats. You may spend 4 or 5 nights one week, and then the next week you might only see her once or twice. So you're just going to respond to her level of enthusiasm and not take any of it personally, not get upset, not get butthurt. I really do like this girl, but I'm not sure whether she will lose interest in me as quick as she developed it. And I don't know how to handle the situation where I should only be giving her my time when we are face to face until she slowly develops strong feelings and falls in love. So this guy's incorrectly thinking, oh, I will only spend time with her when she has strong feelings. It's like the feelings develop by spending time in person. And you're playing a game with her and pushing her away when she's trying to pull you closer. It's like, so you're doing the opposite of what the book teaches because you're acting like a robot. She wants to see you, so make a date. And it's okay if you see her 3 or 4 times a week or every single night. It does not matter. It's all going to go at her pace. and she's excited to see you and wants to see you more, but you're putting her off unnecessarily, and then to make up for it, she's texting you more. So you're just not recognizing that she's making the car go a little faster, and you're trying to put your foot on the brake and slow it down. It's just not necessary because she's chasing you. If a woman is chasing you, she's not dumping you. She's not getting rid of you. She's not blowing you off. She's not ghosting you. These are all good signs. And so, like I said, the problem why this is confusing to you is probably because it's never happened before. But the other thing is you don't know the book, and you're cherry picking, and you're getting lazy. You can't do that, man. You'll screw it up long term. You have to take the time in. When I do phone sessions with guys, it's like they're either brand new to my work, been following me for a few weeks, and the guys have been following me for a long time. Typically, what happens is they never took the time to read. Oh, yeah, I read it twice 3 years ago, and I've been dating this girl for a year. It's like, and then when I talk to them, it's like they're making the same rookie mistakes as a guy that just found my work a week ago because they never took the time to learn that. So this guy's in a great place, but because he doesn't know the book, he's in danger of screwing things up. Got to get serious, dude. Take your success seriously. There are no shortcuts. So if you got a question or challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.